Hey, beautiful souls. Welcome to another episode of Energize Your Passion, the place where we bring you the tools, the energy, and the mindset to unlock the best version of yourself. I'm your host, Sunshine, and today we're diving deep into a topic that hits home for many of us, feeling stuck. That's right, feeling stuck. Whether it's in your personal life, your relationships, your career, or even just a general sense of stagnation, we've all been there. Trust me when I say I have been there many times. It's that feeling like you're spinning your wheels, but not getting anywhere. It can leave you feeling frustrated, powerless, and even hopeless at times. But here's the thing. Being stuck doesn't mean you're stuck forever. It's a temporary state. And today, we're going to explore exactly how to break free from it. In today's episode, we'll talk about how we feel stuck, where it comes from, how it affects different areas of our lives, and most importantly, how you can get unstuck and reignite your passion for life. This episode is broken down into 5 segments, each focusing on a different aspect of being stuck. Number 1, why do we feel stuck in the first place? Number 2, where exactly are we stuck? Number 3, stuck in love and relationships, how does it affect our connections? Number 4, stuck in your career. We'll dive into that too. Number 5, and finally, the key steps to getting unstuck and moving forward. Throughout this episode, I'll share some of your personal stories, and together we'll find ways to break free from the daily grind and start living with purpose again. So grab your favorite drink, get comfy, and let's get energized. Segment 1. Why do we feel stuck? That's a question. In this first segment, we're going to explore why we even feel stuck in the first place. Have you ever had that overwhelming sense that you're just treading water? Maybe you've lost your motivation, or perhaps you've been in the same routine for so long that it feels impossible to break out of it. It's almost as if you're looking at your life from the outside, feeling disconnected from it, like you're not really living, just existing. We often wonder why we can't just snap out of it. Why can't we just move forward, right? But it's more complicated than that. Feeling stuck isn't just about lack of motivation or internal barriers. It's often something deeper, something internal, whether it's fear, overthinking, or feeling trapped by societal expectations. There's always more to it than what meets the eye. For a lot of us, being stuck starts with our mindset. It's easy to blame external factors, our job, our partner, our situation. But more often than not, it's the way we're thinking about things that's keeping us in place. We get so comfortable in our routines, in the safety of the known, that we don't allow ourselves to dream beyond that. And that's the first thing I want to address today. Sometimes we don't even realize that we're the ones putting up these mental barriers. You might be stuck because you've stopped believing in the possibility of change. Maybe you've told yourself for so long that this is just the way it is, that you've come to accept that as truth. But here's the reality. It doesn't have to be. One of the most liberating things you can do is challenge that narrative. It's not easy, and it requires a lot of self-awareness, but it's worth it. Now let's talk about the fear for a moment. Fear is one of the most powerful forces that keeps us stuck. And it's not just the fear of failure. Sometimes it's the fear of success. Yes, you heard that right. Sometimes we're afraid of what life would look like if things did change, because change is scary. Even positive change can make us feel anxious because it takes us out of our comfort zone. We worry about whether we're ready for the next step, whether we deserve that success, or whether we'll be able to handle the responsibilities that come with it. And so we stay in our little boxes because at least there things feel familiar. But familiarity isn't the same as happiness. It certainly isn't the same as fulfillment. We receive stories from our listeners I would like to share. In the first story, the listener stated, I'm in a long-term relationship, and while I love my partner, I feel we're on autopilot. How do I break the cycle without blowing everything up? My response was, autopilot in relationships is a clear sign of stagnation, and we're going to get into that in segment 3. Listener story number 2. I've been in my job for 10 years, and I've hit a point where I'm no longer excited about what I do. It's safe, and I know I should be grateful, but I can't help feeling stuck. My response was, this is so common. Fear of the unknown keeps us anchored in places that feel familiar. But if you're not growing, you're not thriving. Think about it. How often do we stay in situations that feel safe, even though they no longer serve us? Whether it's a job or a relationship, staying in one place out of fear or habit eventually leads to stagnation. It's like being in a boat that's tied to the dock. You're not sinking, but you're also not going anywhere. Sometimes it's the fear of what happens when you untie that rope and set sail into the unknown that keeps us docked for far too long. And the longer we stay, the harder it becomes to leave. So if you're feeling stuck, it's worth asking yourself, am I holding on to something that I've outgrown? Is there something I'm afraid to let go of because I don't know what's next? Fear is natural, but it's not supposed to paralyze us. It's supposed to guide us, to let us know that something important is happening. When we start feeling stuck, it's often our soul's way of telling us that it's time for a change, even if that change feels scary. Another reason we feel stuck is overthinking. Who else here is guilty of that? I know I am. Sometimes we get so stuck up in analyzing every possible outcome that we become paralyzed by indecision. We want everything to be perfect before we make a move. But life isn't about perfection. It's about progress. If you wait until every little detail is sorted out, you never move forward. The truth is, you'll never feel 100% ready for any major change in life. But that's okay. It's about taking the leap anyway and trusting that you'll figure things out as you go. There's also the societal pressure that many of us experience. We feel like we have to follow a certain path, get a degree, land a stable job, get married, buy a house, have kids. And while there's nothing wrong with any of those things, they're not the only path. The problem arises when we start living by society's script instead of our own. When we stop checking in with ourselves about what we really want. When we stop asking, is this still making me happy? and just keep motion because it's what's expected of us. We feel stuck because we sometimes forget that we have the power to write our own stories. We're handed a script by society, by family, by friends, and without even realizing it. We follow it without question. But when we stop and ask ourselves, am I living my truth or am I living someone else's expectations? You might find that the life you're stuck in isn't even one you chose for yourself. It's just the default setting. So, what do we do about that? The first step is realizing that you can change the script. You don't have to follow someone else's plan for your life, but your own. And yes, that can be scary because it means stepping out of the comfort zone of societal approval, but it's also freeing. It gives you the space to pursue what truly makes you happy, even if it doesn't fit into the traditional mold. It's about living intentionally, making choices that align with who you are at your core, rather than what's expected of you. Listener story number 2. I was always told to go to college, get a job, and start a family by a certain age. I did all of that, but I woke up one day feeling like I was missing something. I didn't know what it was at first, but I knew I couldn't keep living on autopilot. This story resonates with so many of us, doesn't it? We follow the checklist life hands us, thinking that ticking off all the boxes will lead to fulfillment. But what happens when we've done all the right things and still feel like something is missing? That's when the feeling of being stuck often hits hardest. It's like you've climbed to the top of the ladder only to realize it's been leaning against the wrong wall. The key takeaway here is that feeling stuck doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're evolving. It's a signal that it's time to reassess, to pivot, and to find a new direction that's more in alignment with who you've become. It's okay to change your mind about what you want. It's okay to pursue new dreams, no matter how far along the path you are. Life isn't a straight line. It's a winding road full of detours, and every turn gives you the chance to discover something new about yourself. As we wrap up this segment, I want to leave you with a powerful reminder. Feeling stuck is part of the human experience. It's not a sign that you're broken or that you've made the wrong choices. It's a signal that growth is on the horizon. When you feel stuck, it's your inner self nudging you, saying, there's more out there for you. It's not about forcing yourself to be happy with where you are. It's about recognizing when it's time to make a change and having the courage to step into the unknown. Being stuck is temporary, but the lesson you learn in those moments of discomfort are lasting. They push you to reflect, to grow, and ultimately to break free. And when you do break free, you'll realize that the journey was worth it. You'll be stronger, more self aware, and more in tune with what truly brings you joy. So ask yourself, what is your soul craving? What change have you been avoiding? It's time to stop treading water and start swimming towards the life you deserve. It's time to break free from the chains of fear, overthinking, and societal expectations. You hold the key to your own freedom. And once you realize that, there is nothing stopping you from moving forward. And remember, you're not alone on this journey. We're all in this together, figuring things out one step at a time. So take that first step, no matter how small it seems, and trust that the path will unfold as you go. You ever got this? I know you do. Segment 2, identifying where you're stuck. Now that we've explored why we feel stuck, it's time to dig a little deeper and ask the next important question. Where exactly are you stuck? Is it your job, your relationship, your personal growth? Or maybe you're stuck in more than one area, which can often be the case. Sometimes it feels like life is working against us on multiple fronts, and that can be incredibly overwhelming. One of the hardest part of overcoming that fear of stagnation is figuring out exactly where the problem lies. You know that feeling? You wake up in the morning, go about your day, and something just doesn't feel right. You might think, am I unhappy at work? Is this relationship still working for me? But you can't quite put your finger on it. It's almost like this cloud that hovers over everything, making you feel drained or uninspired. The problem is, if you don't pinpoint where that feeling of being stuck is coming from, it starts to seep into every part of our lives. You might feel stuck in just one area, like your career, but over time, that dissatisfaction can spill over into your relationships, your health, and your overall happiness. It can create a ripple effect that leaves you feeling off balance in multiple areas. So, how do we go about identifying exactly where we're stuck? This is where self awareness comes into play. Self reflection can be hard, especially when it requires facing uncomfortable truths about our lives, but it is necessary. Start by taking a mental inventory of the key areas in your life: your career, your relationships, personal development, health, and well being. Ask yourself, how do I feel in each of these areas? If something feels off, it's important to acknowledge it rather than brushing it aside. Ignoring that gut feeling only prolongs the sense of stagnation. Let's start with the career side of things. That's the place where many people feel stuck. Maybe you're in a job that no longer excites you. It pays the bills, but it doesn't fuel your passion. Or perhaps you've hit a plateau and you're not sure what the next step is. The idea of starting over or pursuing something new feels daunting, so you stay where you are even though it's not fulfilling you. This is something we hear from a lot of listeners. People who feel stuck in their careers but don't know how to make a change or are afraid of taking that leap. A listener wrote in and said, I've been trying to start a business for years, but I'm always second guessing myself. Now I feel like it's too late to even try. My response was, this is a perfect example of how overthinking can lead us into a cycle of inaction. You know, you want something different, but the constant doubt and second guessing paralyzes you. You start telling yourself things like, it's too late to start now, or what if I fail? And before you know it, years have gone by and you're still in the same place, feeling stuck and frustrated. The truth is, it's never too late to go after what you want. Age, timing, resources, they're all obstacles that can be overcome. The key is recognizing that the doubts you have are just thoughts, not facts. When you're able to separate the two, you can start making progress. But careers aren't the only area where we get stuck. Relationships are another big one. Whether it's a romantic relationship, a friendship, or even a family dynamic. We sometimes find ourselves stuck in patterns that feel uncomfortable, but aren't necessarily healthy or fulfilling. Relationships, like everything else in life, evolve over time. And sometimes that evolution leads to feelings of disconnection. It's easy to let things slide into a routine, especially in long term relationships where you're not necessarily unhappy, but you're not fully connected. Another listener wrote in and said, my partner and I have been together for 5 years. And while we're happy, I feel we've lost our connection. Is this just how relationships are? Or is it something we need to work on? My response was, this is a really common feeling in long-term relationships. Things start off strong, full of excitement and passion, but as time goes on, that initial spark can fade if you're not intentional about keeping it alive. It's easy to fall into autopilot mode where the relationship becomes about managing the day to day work, bills, household responsibilities, rather than nurturing the emotional and intimate connection that brought you two together in the first place. But here's the good news. Just because you've lost that connection doesn't mean it's gone forever. Relationships are like gardens. They need regular care and attention to thrive. We'll dive deeper into this in the next segment, but it's important to remember that feeling disconnected is a sign that something needs to shift, not that the relationship is broken beyond repair. When it comes to identifying whether you're stuck, don't overlook your personal growth. Sometimes we get so caught up in our external circumstances, our jobs, our relationships, that we forget to ask ourselves whether we're growing as individuals. Are you pursuing your passions? Are you learning new things, taking on new challenges, and expanding your comfort zone? Or have you settled into a routine where everything feels predictable? It's easy to fall into that trap of complacency, especially when life gets busy. But personal growth is crucial to feeling fulfilled. If you're not growing, you're stagnant. And that can lead to a deep sense of dissatisfaction that you might not even be able to pinpoint right away. A lot of times, people feel stuck because they've stopped dreaming. Think back to when you was younger. What were your goals? Your passions? What lit up you inside? Somewhere along the way, life happened, and those dreams might have taken a back seat. That's okay. It happens to a lot of us. But it's important to reconnect with those dreams. Ask yourself, what do I really want? What would make me feel alive again? Don't be afraid to dream big, even if you're not sure how to get there just yet. And finally, your health and well-being plays a huge role in whether or not you feel stuck. Sometimes the feeling of stagnation comes from physical or mental exhaustion. If you're not taking care of your body or mind, it's hard to feel motivated to make changes in other areas of our life. Take a moment to check in with yourself. Are you getting enough rest? Eating well, exercising, and practicing self-care? These might seem like little things, but they can have a big impact on how you feel overall. If your energy is low or you're constantly feeling run down, it's hard to summon the motivation to get unstuck. To wrap up this segment, it's important to recognize that feeling stuck doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong. It's a signal that something in your life needs attention. Whether it's your job, your relationship, your personal growth, or your health, Identifying where you're stuck is the first step in making meaningful changes. It's about getting honest with yourself, recognizing the areas that need work, and being open to the ideal of change, even if that change feels uncomfortable. You don't have to have all the answers right now, but by identifying where the issue lies, you've taken the first crucial step towards getting unstuck. Stay tuned for the next segment. We'll talk about relationships and how to reignite that spark when you feel like you and your partners are on autopilot. This is going to be a good one. Segment 3, Stuck in Love and Relationships. Relationships are such a huge part of our lives, and often they're the areas where we feel the most stuck. Whether it's a romantic relationship, a close friendship, or even a family dynamic, stagnation has a way of creeping in if we're not mindful. And when that happens, it can be really hard to know how to fix it. You might think we're just going through a rough patch, or this is how relationships are supposed to be after a while. But deep down, you know something's missing. So, how do we identify when a relationship is stuck? And how do we breathe new life into it? When you're in a long term relationship or even a deep friendship, it's so easy to fall into routines. And honestly, routines can be comforting at first. There's a certain level of security and predictability that comes with knowing someone so well. You might be thinking, what's wrong with having a routine? And the answer is nothing's wrong with routines themselves. But over time, if you're not actively growing together, that connection that used to feel so vibrant can start to feel dull. You go through the motions. Maybe you're still sharing the same house, the same life, but it starts to feel more like you're coexisting rather than truly connecting. Let's start by talking about romantic relationships. They're often the area where we feel stuck the most because we have such high expectations. When you're in love, especially in the beginning, everything feels new and exciting. But over time, life happens. You have responsibilities, work, kids, bills, and it becomes so easy to let the relationship run on autopilot. You still love each other, but that deep connection, the one that made you fall in love in the first place, starts to fade. Another listener wrote in and said, I've been married for 15 years, and we've hit a point where we're more like roommates than partners. I love him, but I feel like we've lost that romance. My response was, this story is so common, and it doesn't mean that the love is gone. What happens is that the relationship has settled into a comfortable place, which is normal after so many years. But the question becomes, how do you move forward? How do you move from being roommates back to being partners? Back to the romantic connection that you've once had. The truth is, relationships, especially long-term ones, require effort. It's not enough to just coast through, even though it can be tempting when life gets busy, but that effort doesn't have to be monumental. Sometimes it's the small things that make the biggest difference. One thing to consider is how much intentional time you're spending together. When was the last time you had a date night? Just the two of you. Or even just a conversation that wasn't about daily logistics, like who's picking up the kids or what's for dinner. It's so easy to let life's demands take over and forget to nurture the relationship itself. Try setting aside time each week to reconnect, even if it's just a 30-minute walk or coffee together. The key is to make it a regular part of your routine, so you're constantly investing in the relationship. It's about shifting your mindset from "we're in this relationship" to "we're actively choosing each other every day." Another thing that happens is remembering why you fell in love in the first place. Think back to those early days. What drew you to each other? What made you excited about being with this person? Sometimes just reflecting on those memories can reignite something inside of you. And don't be afraid to try new things together. Breaking out of your routine, even in small ways, can bring a fresh energy to the relationship. It could be something as simple as trying a new hobby together, going on an adventure, or even just having a deeper conversation where you open up about things you haven't talked about in a while. Now let's talk about friendships because they're often overlooked when we think about feeling stuck in relationships. Friendships, like romantic relationships, can fall into routines too. Sometimes you and your best friend might not see each other as much, or your lives might be pulling you in different directions. But that doesn't mean the friendship has to end. It just means you need to be intentional about reconnecting. Another listener wrote in and said, "My best friend and I used to be super close, but lately we've drifted apart. I'm not sure if we're just busy or if we've outgrown each other." My response was, this is something a lot of people experience, including myself. As we get older, our priorities change and our lives get busier. It's not always that we've outgrown each other, but sometimes life gets in the way. If you're feeling this way about a friendship, the first step is to reach out. Sometimes we assume the other person is too busy or that they don't feel the same way. But the truth is, they might be feeling stuck too. Reconnecting doesn't have to be complicated. It could be as simple as sending a text or giving them a call. And when you do, don't just talk about the surface stuff. Really ask how they're doing. One of the reasons friendship drift is because we stop having those deeper conversations. So take the time to check in and see how they're feeling. What's been going on in their lives? And if you both been busy, make a plan to spend time together, even if it's just once a month. Sometimes all it takes is that little bit of effort to bring the friendship back to life. When it comes to family relationships, things can be even more complex. Family dynamics are often layered with history, expectations, and sometimes unresolved issues. It's not uncommon to feel stuck in a family relationship, whether it's with a parent, sibling, or extended family member. Maybe there's tension or old wounds that haven't healed, and every interaction feels like you're walking on eggshells. Or maybe you've just drifted apart over time and you're not sure how to reconnect. If you're feeling stuck in a family relationship, the first step is to acknowledge those feelings. It's okay to admit that things aren't perfect. And from there, it's about deciding what you want that relationship to look like moving forward. Do you want to heal old wounds? Do you want to reconnect in a meaningful way? Or do you need to set boundaries to protect your own well-being? These are tough questions, but they're necessary if you want to move forward and get unstuck. One thing to keep in mind with family relationships is that it's okay to take small steps. If the idea of having a big conversation or confrontation feel overwhelming, start with something small. Send a message to check in or invite them to do something casual like grabbing a coffee. Sometimes those little gestures can open the doors to deeper healing. And if there are unresolved issues, it might be worth seeking outside support, whether that's through therapy or a trusted mediator. to help you navigate those conversations in a healthy way. Ultimately, whether it's a romantic relationship, a friendship, or a family relationship, the key to getting unstuck is communication. It's about being open and honest with the other person about how you're feeling and being willing to put in the effort to make things better. Relationships are living, breathing things, and they require attention and care. If you're feeling stuck, it doesn't mean the relationship is doomed. It just means it's time to shift your approach and put in the work to reignite that connection. So if you're feeling stuck in love or relationships right now, take a moment to reflect. Are you going through the motions without really connecting? Is there something deeper that needs to be addressed? And most importantly, are you willing to make the effort to bring life back into the relationship? Because even though it might feel daunting, the rewards are absolutely worth it. Stay tuned for our next segment, where we're going to talk about getting unstuck in your career and personal growth. Segment 4, Stuck in Your Career. Let's dive into career stagnation. This is such a common area where people feel stuck, and for good reason. Work is a huge part of our lives. Whether we like it or not, we spend a significant chunk of our time and energy in our careers. And when you feel stuck in your job or profession, it can drain your enthusiasm, your energy, and even your sense of purpose. You might not even realize how much it's affecting you until one day you wake up and feel like you're just going through the motions. So how do you break free from that grind and find fulfillment again? We've all been there at some point or another, whether it's because the passion for your work has fizzled out or you feel like there's no room for growth. Maybe you're doing everything right, following the career path that's expected of you, but it's not bringing you the satisfaction you thought it would. Or perhaps you're in a job that's stable and pays the bills, but the ideal of staying there for another 5, 10, or even 20 years feels unbearable. The good news is, feeling stuck doesn't mean you're stuck forever. There's always a way out. When we talk about being stuck in our careers, one of the biggest obstacles is fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of change, fear of failure. It's easy to stay in a job that's comfortable because you know what to expect. Even if you're unhappy, there's a certain safety in that routine. But what if you could step outside of that comfort zone? What if you could pursue something that resonates with your passion? What if you could pursue something that reignites your passion? Something that makes you excited to get up in the morning. I know, easier said than done, right? Another listener wrote in and said, I've been at the same company for almost a decade. And while it used to excite me, now I'm just going through the motions. I don't know what to do next. My response was, this is such a common feeling, especially for those who have been in the same job or company for a long time. At first, everything is new and exciting. There are challenges to overcome, skills to learn, goals to achieve. But after a while, once you've settled in, it's easy for that excitement to fade. You become really good at your job, but that means it's no longer challenging. You know what? To expect day in and day out. And that predictability can make it feel like you're just spinning your wheels. So what do you do when you find yourself in this situation? The first step is to acknowledge that it's okay to feel this way. So many of us beat ourselves up for feeling stuck, especially if we have a stable job or a career that other people might envy. But just because a job is stable or well paying doesn't mean it's fulfilling. It's okay to want more. It's okay to want to feel passionate about your work again. The next step is to explore what's missing. What is it about your current job that's making you feel stuck? Is it the lack of growth opportunities? Is it that you're no longer learning or being challenged? Or maybe it's that your values or interests have shifted over the years and your job no longer aligns with who you are or what you care about. Once you can pinpoint what's missing, you can start taking action. That might mean looking for ways to grow within your current company, or it might mean exploring new opportunities elsewhere. For some, getting unstuck in their career might involve taking a leap, whether that's pursuing a different role within your company, going back to school, or even starting your own business. For others, it might mean redefining what success looked like for them. Not everyone wants the same thing out of their career, and that's okay. Maybe for you, success means having more work-life balance, or it means doing something that aligns with your passion and purpose. Even if it's not the highest paying job out there, it's all about finding what works for you. Another listener wrote in and said, I am a recent grad and I feel I'm already stuck in a career that I don't love. How do I find my passion? My response was, this is such a tough spot to be in because as a recent grad, you're probably feeling the pressure to figure it all out right away. There's this societal expectation that as soon as you graduate, you should know exactly what you want to do for the rest of your life. But the reality is, most people don't have it all figured out right away. And that's okay. Your first job, or even your second or third job, doesn't have to be your forever job. It's a stepping stone, a chance to learn more about what you like and what you don't like. One thing to keep in mind is that finding your passion doesn't always happen overnight. It's a process, and sometimes it involves trying different things until something clicks. It may involve taking a few detours along the way. The important thing is to stay open to new possibilities. Ask yourself, what excites you? What are the things you could spend hours doing and not even notice the time passing? These are clues that can help you find your passion. Another thing to consider is that sometimes passion isn't something you find, it's something you create. You might not feel passionate about your job right now, but what if you could find ways to make it more fulfilling? Maybe that means taking on a new project or learning a new skill. Or maybe it means looking for ways to incorporate your passions into your job in small ways. For example, if you love helping people, maybe you can mentor someone at your company. If you're passionate about creativity, maybe you can bring a fresh perspective to your work or suggest new ideas to your team. The point is, you don't always have to make a dramatic change to find fulfillment. Now let's talk about those of you who have been in the same career for years and are starting to feel that itch for something new. This is where a lot of people feel stuck because after so many years, making a change can feel really scary. You might be thinking, I've invested so much time and energy into this career. What if I make a change and it doesn't work out? Or maybe you're worried about starting over, especially if you've reached a certain level of success in your current field. These are valid concerns, but they don't have to hold you back. One way to ease into a career change is to start small. You don't have to quit your job tomorrow, and dive headfirst into something new. Instead, you can start exploring other options on the side. Maybe you take a course in something you're interested in, or you start a side project that aligns with your passion. The key is to start taking small steps in the direction you want to go without putting too much pressure on yourself to have it all figured out right away. Another thing to consider is that sometimes the feeling of being stuck in your career isn't about the job itself. It's about your mindset. If you've been in the same role for a long time, it's easy to fall into a fixed mindset where you think, this is all there is for me. But the truth is, there's always room for growth, reinvention, no matter how long you've been in your career. It's about shifting your perspective from I'm stuck to I'm capable of change. And that change doesn't have to be drastic. It can be as simple as learning something new, taking on a new challenge, or finding ways to make your current job more fulfilling. At the end of the day, getting unstuck in your career is all about being proactive. It's about taking ownership of your path and not being afraid to make changes, even if they're small ones at first. Whether it means pursuing new opportunities, redefining success on your own terms, or simply reigniting the passion you once had. The key is to keep moving forward. And remember, it's never too late to pivot. It's never too late to find something that truly lights you up. So if you're feeling stuck in your career right now, take a deep breath and know that you have the power to change your situation. You're not stuck. You're just in a transition, and that's okay. Segment 5, how to get unstuck. Practical steps for moving forward. Now that we've explored all the ways we can feel stuck, whether it's in life, love, or career, let's shift our focus to the point where change happens. This is where the magic begins. So, how exactly do we get unstuck? It's one thing to know where you're stuck, but the real power comes from taking action. And guess what? It doesn't always have to be a giant leap. Sometimes, even the smallest step forward can lead to big changes, Let's dive into some practical steps for breaking free from stagnation. These are the actions that can get you moving again, whether you're feeling stuck in your relationships, your career, or just life in general. Number 1, fear and comfort zones. One of the biggest things that keep us stuck is fear. Fear of failure, fear of the unknown, and even fear of success. Sometimes we're afraid that if we try to break out of our current situation, we might fail and end up worse off than where we started. But what if we succeed? What if pushing through that fear opened doors to opportunities we've never imagined? And let's not forget the comfort zone. As humans, we naturally gravitate towards what feels safe and familiar, even if it's no longer serving us. We stay in jobs we hate, relationships that no longer fulfills us, or patterns that drain our energy, all because it's easier than facing the unknown. So how do we break out of this cycle? The first step is recognition. Start by acknowledging that fear and comfort are holding you back. Once you can name your fears and identify the boundaries of your comfort zone, you can start to push past them. It might be uncomfortable at first. Actually, it will be uncomfortable. But that's where growth happens. When you step outside of your comfort zone, you begin to realize how much more is possible. Try this. Next time you feel fear creeping in, ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen? Often our fears are much bigger in our mind than they are in reality. And once you confront those fears head on, you realize that they don't even control your life. Number 2, identifying where you're stuck. We've talked about the importance of identifying where the feelings of stagnation is coming from. But let's break this down even more. Maybe you feel stuck in one area of your life, like your career, and it's bleeding into everything else. Your relationship, your health, even your self-esteem. Or maybe it's a combination of things. Work isn't fulfilling. Your relationship feels stagnant, and you're not growing personally. One thing that can help here is journaling or reflecting on your daily life. Take a few minutes each day to write down what feels like it's no longer working for you. Ask yourself these questions. What part of my life feels stuck? When did I start feeling this way? Is it a temporary phase, or is this something I've felt for a long time? Once you have a clear understanding of where you're stuck, you can start to work on these solutions. And remember, getting unstuck isn't about fixing everything all at once. It's about tackling one area at a time, making small changes, and gradually moving forward. Number 3, reviving relationships. Feeling stuck in relationships, whether romantic, platonic, or familial, is incredibly common. It's easy to fall into routines that make us feel disconnected from the people we care about. The spark that was once there may feel like it's fading, but it doesn't mean the relationship is beyond repair. The key to getting unstuck in relationship is communication. You heard me right, communication. You have to talk to your partner, friend, or family member about how you're feeling. I know, sometimes it's hard bringing up feelings of disconnection because you don't want to hurt the other person or cause conflict. But open communication is the first step to making any real change. Without it, stagnation will only deepen. In romantic relationships, for example, it's important to ask yourself and your partner, what do you need to feel connected again? Sometimes it's as simple as spending quality time together, trying new activities, or reigniting the romance in small ways. It could also be a matter of addressing underlying issues that have been ignored. For friendships, you could feel like you're drifting apart. Try to reconnect in a meaningful way. Make plans to do something together that you both enjoy, or simply take the time to catch up and share what's been going on in each other's lives. Friendship takes effort, just like any other relationship, and it's never too late to strengthen those bonds. And let's not forget family relationships. Sometimes we get stuck in old patterns with family members. Perhaps their unresolved tension, or you're stuck in roles that no longer suit who you are now. Again, communication and setting healthy boundaries can help break the cycle and bring new energy into those relationships. Number 4, career growth and fulfillment. Career stagnation can feel especially overwhelming because for many of us, our jobs are tied to our sense of identity and purpose. When we feel stuck at work, it's easy to believe that there's no way out. That is just how things are going to be. But let me tell you, growth is always possible. It's never too late to seek new opportunities, set new goals, or reignite your passion for your work. One of the best ways to get unstuck in your career is to take control of your growth. Instead of waiting for opportunity to come to you, start seeking them out. Is there a new skill you could learn that will make your work more exciting? Are there opportunities for advancement within your company that you could pursue? Or maybe it's time to consider a career pivot. If the work you're doing no longer aligns with your values or passions, it's okay to explore new paths. It can also help to set small, manageable goals for yourself. Sometimes the feeling of stagnation comes from a lack of direction. If you're not working towards something, it's easy to feel like you're just spinning your wheels. Set goals that challenge you, whether they're related to professional development, personal growth, or simply finding more balance in your life. And remember, getting unstuck in your career doesn't always mean making a drastic change. Sometimes it's about finding fulfillment in what you're already doing. By seeking new challenges, collaborating with others, or finding ways to make your work more meaningful. Number 5, action over perfection. One final tip for getting unstuck. Don't wait for the perfect moment to make a change. Sometimes we get stuck because we're waiting for everything to line up perfectly before we take action. We think, once I have more time, more money, more experience, then I'll make a move. But the truth is, there's no perfect moment. There will always be obstacles and uncertainties. The key is to take action now, right now, even if it's not perfect. Start small. Maybe it's sending out that job application, having that difficult conversation with your partner, or signing up for that class you've been putting off. The important thing is to take action, no matter how small. Each step forward brings you closer to breaking free from stagnation and creating the life you want. Key points: fear and comfort zones. Acknowledge that fear and comfort are keeping you stuck and challenge yourself to step outside your comfort zone. Growth happens when you're willing to embrace discomfort and push past fears. Identifying where you're stuck. Reflect on where the feeling of stagnation is coming from. Is it your career, your relationships, or your personal growth? Once you know where you're stuck, you can start working on solutions. Reviving relationships. Whether it's a romantic relationship, friendship, or family connection, communication is key. Make the effort to reconnect, try new things together, and address any issues that are causing this stagnation. Career growth and fulfillment. Seek out opportunities for growth. Set new goals, and take control of your career path. Remember, it's never too late to pursue something that excites you. Action over perfection. Don't wait for the perfect moment to make a change. Start small, take action now, and trust that each step forward will bring you closer to the life you deserve. So there you have it. Being stuck is a phase, not a permanent state. With a little self reflection, some practical steps, and a lot of patience, you can break free from whatever's holding you back. The journey to getting unstuck is all about progress, not perfection. Every small step you take is a victory. You deserve to celebrate each one. And as always, I want to remind you that you're not alone in this journey. We're all figuring it out together. And every step forward is a step towards the life you truly deserve. Thank you for joining me on today's episode. If you enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to give us a 5-star rating and share it with your friends and loved ones. You never know who might be feeling stuck and who could use a little inspiration to move forward. And remember, if you got a story you want to share or a question you'd like me to answer in future episodes, feel free to reach out by keeping the conversation going in the comments. Until next time, keep moving forward, even if it's just one step at a time. You've got this. Keep shining, stay energized, and keep pursuing your passion. This is Sunshine, signing off.